My wife and I escaped from Sydney end of 2007 and moved to Murrurundi. People ask, why do we move here? I think Murrurundi just attracted us and dragged us here. I won't go into the whole details behind it, but we're loving every minute of it being here. It's just a fabulous place to be in. We have an art gallery and a courtyard cafe on the other side of the river called Hayden Hall. The name Hayden Hall came about because those who may not be aware, you're in two villages here. From the river this side is Murrurundi, government town. The other side of the river, east, is Haydenton, a private village. The reason why the highway is narrow on that side and wide on this side. In 1913, they amalgamated and became Murrurundi. We had two railway stations, two post offices, so we're quite an interesting little mixture of people here. But I won't go stealing too much of Mandy's thunder in that area. We took over the Commercial Bank of Sydney bank building, which is a relatively new building for the town, built in 1937, operated for 60 years as a bank. So that's a little bit about me. Just recently I was asked the question, I asked the question, what's another word for heritage? What does heritage mean to you? Now I had the advantage of already checking up on the dictionary, and of course the word that meant the most to me out of the word heritage was the word legacy. You see, legacy rather neatly covers what our forebears left behind. They left us their legacy, be it buildings, shale mines, railways, tree plantings, all parts of their life and their living. But the word legacy also points the finger back at us, asking the question, what legacy are we leaving our children and those that follow us? Now we at Murrurundi are not unique in that we face many of the same questions and difficulties that small rural towns all over the state face on a daily basis. As the owner of a dwelling in the Heritage Precinct, it's easy to get bogged down in the red tape and all the legality that goes with being in the Heritage Precinct. But what are the requirements? And when and how do I find out what is correct? Do my rate notices tell me? When I purchase a property, does the real estate agent tell me? Ignorance, in this case, initially seems bliss, but it turns out not to be bliss once you start to find out what you've purchased. Do I follow the streetscape concept and meet certain requirements right down to the style and colour of the front fence that I'm allowed to have? Or, like a house in Hamilton, Newcastle, which my friends refer to as the alterations and extensions to a veranda, because that was what was left of the old workers' cottage when it was finished, but it did maintain the streetscape. But then again, I could be instructed to follow the borough charter and make sure that all the repairs and maintenance and extensions carried out are all done using modern, up-to-date materials and are not made to replicate the old. You know, I recently saw a beautiful old brick school building with its gabled roof and lead-light windows that had been purchased and lovingly restored and converted to a residence. But with a nasty zinc-coated, corrugated iron lean-to extension because they had to comply to the borough charter. Rules and regulations have changed over the years and they keep on changing. Take note of the CMA. Plant poplars one year, rip them out the next. Plant willow trees, rip them out. Unfortunately, if we're not careful, trees which have historical significance, a la a willow tree which was just on the other side of the road here on the corner of the bridge, got taken out at some ridiculous hour in the morning. That tree was of historical significance. but it's gone because some rules and regulations changed as far as using willow trees on riverbanks. With these changes taking place, many old buildings of bygone eras, particularly those of commercial significance, such as old picture theatres, once the centre and life of our town, sit now empty and decaying because they simply don't comply with today's requirements. The number of car parking facilities required is just an example, even before you start looking at occupational health and safety issues and requirements, all very hard to do without damaging the original fabric of the building. And we know buildings in Scone which are suffering exactly that same fate at the present moment. Other structures, such as the old cast iron water tower used by the steam trains in Murrurundi, is no longer maintained, as those who fought to save it, as a reminder of lives past, have themselves grown too old to carry out the maintenance. Rather tragic when you see that beautiful old water tower with the roof caved in now and vines and trees growing all around it. So, what's to happen to our heritage in our old country towns? Do buildings sit there gathering dust and cobwebs as old museums? And let's face it, you can only have so many old museums in towns. Or do they gradually fall apart due to stalemates between owners, legislation and cost? Or worse still, are they removed through ignorance, as was the horse hitching rail in our own Liverpool Street, outside what was the old doctor's residence? Probably moved because it was easy to mow the footpath. But I'll put it down to ignorance. I think we all know and understand that government legislation, along with rules and negatives, thou shalt not regulations, or even grants, are not what creates pride of place. Pride of place is not something that you can force upon a place or a person or even purchase. But it's an attitude that comes from within the people of the town of having a positive community mindset. Sure, there are many things we can do to help create that positive community mindset. Such simple things as letting people know that they've purchased a property, which is heritage, or one within a precinct. What does that mean? And what positive things are available for them? It might be free advice on colour schemes or architectural design. There are many ways that the experience can be made a positive experience, not a perceived minefield. I lived in South Australia for a while, and I was thrilled to see what took place down there with the old bluestone cottages, where the government told people when they purchased them, they had free government architectural advice on the interiors and the yards, so they could maintain a precinct and streetscape. That was readily taken up. In the southern suburbs of Adelaide, a beautiful old mansion on acreage was purchased by Exacto to turn into offices. Again, government architects gave all the free advice and help, even on how to drop the ceiling, which was a beautiful pressed metal ceiling, drop it down sufficiently to allow air conditioning to go in and not spoil the fabric of the interior of the building. So there are positive ways that we can go about in helping those people, and doing so, develop a positive mindset. The founder and director of the Bank of Ideas, Peter Kenyon, says, "We build communities by basically stimulating local people to actually believe that this is their town and they can actually do something with it. And it's about getting this type of buy-in. It's about getting that type of commitment and belief. And that, I think, is the greatest challenge. Once you've got there," he says, "communities can do anything. Begin by identifying what it is that you've got and what it is that you can do with that, and begin to look at windows of possibility." Councillor Bill Howie commented in his article in the Scone Advocate that pride of place in remote Cape York is a paradigm designed to help improve the presentation of people's houses and gardens, as well as support the cleaning up of public areas. Having a clean, neat environment will help make people proud of their surroundings, in turn creating a significant positive effect on the social norm. And it's actually working. It came from within by creating a positive mindset. Let me give you just one example of how pride of place can affect a community and leave a lasting legacy. Leaving the airport, I drive out into the country to a small farming villa on the edge of a village, where I enter through the great old timber doors into a modern open-planned office. Upstairs, while participating in an international video conference, I look out the window onto the courtyard, across the old well and olive tree to the stables, which are now the accounts department. Having seen the window of opportunity and possibilities, my business associate in Brussels created such an environment that the majority of his staff moved out of the hustle and bustle of the city into the village houses and farm homesteads. The pride of place in that village you can actually feel, not just in the new arrivals, but in those who also had hung in as the village had declined. Of course, then followed the service industries to support the business and families. Gough Whitlam said, when they were attempting to establish Orange and Bathurst as a decentralised capitals, for every government worker that moves out here, there's a minimum of 3 service support workers required. You move 20 people into an office in Murrurundi, we've got broadband here. You've got 3 people to support plus their families, so all of a sudden you've got 100 people in town. Murrurundi is a town that has such a rich and varied legacy left by the different generations that have lived or passed through here. Small reminders such as the beautiful cast iron and timber public seating that reminds us of our fine wool heritage in the seats and castings. When you walk through the town, have a look at some of those. They're from the old Murrurundi Shire Council days. And in the end castings they have the sheep, reminding us very much of what was the history of this town once was fine wool. The old well, Murrurundi's original water supply, and the drinking troughs, which is just up here, as a reminder of horse transport and of the Depression. The suspension bridge, being district court judge's method to cross the river to go to the courthouse. The second bridge, because this is the third one, the second bridge was wide enough for a horse and sulky to go across in times of flood. The World War I commemorative park and special tree plantings in Blandford, which I believe is unique. If you get a chance to get down and see it, or see the configuration of the tree plantings, each tree and each type of tree, be it an elm or an oak, has a particular reason for being there. And I don't know of anywhere else in Australia, or let alone the world, that has anything like it. The Murrurundi Public School, being the 4th oldest continually operating school in New South Wales, which makes it Australia. It was number 7, it's now number 4, as other ones have closed. Our school keeps on growing, which is great. The architecture that ranges from the famous Horbury Hunt churches, woolsheds and homes, through to the railway cottages and the slab huts. Then there are the old hotels and stables from the days of Cobb & Co. as reminders of when Murrurundi was the next stop after Muswellbrook, not Scone. Just as an aside, if you travel up the New England Highway, approximately every hour you come to a town. That's because Cobb & Co coaches travelled 60 miles every day. So it was Muswellbrook, Murrurundi, Tamworth. Land up the hill here was gazetted for a high school, everything. Something went wrong. We now have Scone. I'm fiercely parochial, I'm sorry. The old water tower, the switch points and a single next to the station That's all that's left of the great era of steam and rail that was once Murrurundi. The old shale mine workings tucked away off Doughboy Street, and the remains of the railway embankment running as an extension of Elizabeth Street back to what was our second station, being Temple Court, remind us of the failed attempts to profitable shale mining in the early 1900s. One thing's certain through all of this: Murrurundi, like its people, has remained a living, vital town that's adjusted and adapted to the difficult stages and times in its history, and it will no doubt continue to do so. Its relative isolation and its geographical setting have helped contribute to the type of town it is today, and to the people it attracts, especially its strong architectural and artistic community basis. Especially note the town entry signs at each end of town, created and manufactured by local residents. Another legacy left for our next generation as an expression of Murrurundi, a town proud of its place as the crown of the hunter. Thank you. I trust you enjoy the seminar and Murrurundi.
Windows of possibility. That's very, very inspiring. I'm sure everyone here would agree with that. Also, what you said, you empower your community to understand what's important. Then you try to get some consensus about how to look after what's important. And then you do the looking after. I mean, that's very much akin to the borough charter process, which isn't just a set of rules, it's a way of doing things, a method for action, a really good methodology.
Yes, the town had quite a battle to stop the RTA from chopping all those trees down. So it was quite a victory. This town can be quite feisty when it gets something it believes in. And that park, yes, has been saved and maintained. And we just hope it keeps on growing. Being living things, but being nurtured and well looked after. But if you get a chance, it's opposite the Blandford Primary School there on the corner of Timewell Road. You can pull in and see it there. As far as nurturing in this town here, with Turning of the Pages, which is a community organisation, we had a public meeting and over 35 people turned up, adults, to discuss things like a river walk and the concepts and stuff like that. So this town is very much a town which gets behind the things that take place in this town here and what it preserves the town itself. So along with the artistic community and the work that takes place within the schools, there's a lot of positive attitude with the primary schools here and in Blandford through understanding the environment and everything else, because the environment is definitely a part of the heritage, not just the built heritage. There's the framed map over of the tree planting over in the museum. Yes, if you go across to the museum, you'll see a big framed layout of the V of the trees and what each tree means. It's rather beautiful.